Today, only a handful of people know what the Amityville Horror saga is really all about. The people who know the real truth will do anything, including commit murder, to protect the secret. Most people know of it as a mass murder and then a family haunting. But what really is it all about? Can you handle the truth? The real horror in Amityville will scare you more than the movie. The Amityville Horror saga is not a paranormal event. The truth is the Amityville Horror saga is a war crime. How far would a community or town go to protect itself? Would they commit murder? Would they murder innocent children? Would they destroy an innocent family? Would they create a cruel hoax to cover up the murder? Would they deceive the country in order to continue the cover-up? They were told they would get away with it. They were told the conspiracy would never be discovered. In 1974, the government offered Amityville a deal they couldn't refuse. The deal was to free the town of the DeFeo family on Ocean Avenue for a price. Amityville would later discover that the price was far greater than they ever imagined. Amityville is hiding a terrible secret. Amity means friendship. Unless you're a threat. What happened here on Ocean Avenue in the early morning hours of November 13, 1974? 6 members of the DeFeo family were murdered in their home while sleeping. All members of the DeFeo family shot with the same rifle. All members of the DeFeo family are found in similar positions on their beds, lying on their stomachs with their arms extended above their heads. All members of the DeFeo family died in their sleep as if the rifle shots never awoke them. No sign of a struggle. The autopsies indicate that no members of the DeFeo family were drugged. The oldest son in the DeFeo family, Ronald DeFeo Jr., aka Butch, was the only surviving member of the family. Butch was convicted of murdering his entire family and sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. No one can provide a rational explanation of how Butch DeFeo went room to room in the middle of the night murdering his family with a high-powered rifle and none of the DeFeo family awoke. What happened here? Why can't anyone solve the mystery?
The standard story is basically that Ronald DeFeo Jr., who was then 23 in 1974, woke up at approximately 3:15 a.m. and for reasons unknown, basically killed his entire family while they slept.
He took the rifle and shot both of his parents who were sleeping in the master bedroom. Then he shot his younger brothers, 2 of them. And then he went to an adjacent bedroom and shot his sister. And then he walked up to the 3rd floor bedroom and shot his other sister, Dawn.
All the bodies were found face down with no signs of struggle. An autopsy revealed the family had not been drugged.
At the time, we were amazed that all of the bodies were found face down with their arms extended. We knew that they were all in this position at the time they were shot because the entrance and exit holes of the bullets matched with where they left the body and entered the mattresses. It almost had the appearance that they were being held at bay or told to be in a certain position at that time.
To this day, as far as I know, none of those people were drugged. So why someone wasn't able to get out of that house, it's beyond belief.
We did extensive toxicology, not only on the blood and urine, but on all of the organs that we removed, and it turned up 0, that there wasn't anything in their body. So they were cold sober at the time they were murdered.
I would have assumed that he did have an accomplice, but that's never been proven, and you know, we haven't found any evidence to indicate that.
They were each shot with a .35 Marlin. We had an experiment conducted when we were preparing for trial, the noise level of the .35 Marlin, and that Marlin could be heard 4 to 5 blocks away from the house. With all the shots that took place, there were approximately 9 blasts from a Marlin. There was no evidence that any of the 6 victims had made any attempt to escape.
What was so odd is how you managed to shoot 6 people in the middle of the night in a quiet neighborhood without awakening any of the people. A shotgun blast is pretty loud. That doesn't make any sense.
6 people would be lying in bed. How is it that 6 people would stay in bed?
I thought perhaps the bodies had been moved from their original spots. The autopsy reports show that no, they were not moved, that they were in the original places that they were when they were shot. There were no drugs found in the bloodstreams. And again, the victims are found lying face down in death stretch.
How could that whole family be murdered, going from one floor to another in that house? Nobody is waking up. No neighbor is hearing a high-powered rifle. And the houses are so close to each other.
Even if they were sleeping, the report of the weapon that was used is supposed to be so loud that it would have, so to speak, almost awakened the dead.
A professional gunman demonstrates the exact type of rifle Butch was convicted of using to murder his family.
Go for one turkey if I feel like I can see the sights. That's nice. It's a little bit of a thump, but it really doesn't kick that much. Let's go for the buffalo. All right.
This is a police photograph of the actual murder weapon, Butch's rifle. The DeFeo neighbors said they heard no shots the night of the murders. These pictures will illustrate how close the neighbors' houses are to the DeFeo's house. This is the crime scene diagram of the second floor of the DeFeo house. This is the crime scene diagram of the third floor of the DeFeo house. Ronald DeFeo Jr. states from prison that it was physically impossible for him to have committed the murders.
How could one person go through the house and kill 6 people the way they think they were killed? The way they, excuse me, let me correct myself, the way they said they were killed. You show me how right now. It's impossible. It's impossible. It's impossible. It's impossible.
Butch DeFeo also states from prison that he was in the basement doing drugs when the real killers entered his home and murdered his family.
Ronald DeFeo applied for parole in 1999. In his hearing, he told officials that he was downstairs, quote, using drugs, unquote, while the real killers came in and gunned down his family.
Gerard Sullivan, the prosecutor who won Ronald DeFeo Jr.'s conviction of 25 years to life in prison for the murder of his family, stated years later in his book High Hopes, The Amityville Murders, "I still think about the DeFeo case, especially about the children. And I wonder about the questions that were never answered. Did any of the victims wake up? If so, why didn't any of them defend themselves? Why were all 6 found face down in death? Why didn't anyone hear the shots?" To answer Gerard Sullivan's questions, we must go back to 1965 and tell the whole story from the beginning. Ocean Avenue is a quiet, peaceful, and friendly place to live for the affluent in Amityville. The England family is a powerful and influential family in the town of Amityville. The England family is one of the founding members of Amityville that has lived in Amityville for generations. Andy and Agnes England live in their luxurious home on Ocean Avenue in the affluent section of Amityville. The house directly neighboring the Englands' home has been vacant for months. The address of this vacant house is 112 Ocean Avenue. The vacant house is an odd-looking house with 2 quarter-shaped moon windows that look like eyes. Because the vacant house was too big for the property, the house was actually built sideways on the lot, with the front door on the side of the house. Oddly enough, the property the vacant house was built on actually once belonged to the England family. It is June 28, 1965. Andy and Agnes England are sitting outside their home enjoying the beautiful sunny day. A car suddenly pulls into the driveway of the neighboring vacant house. A noticeably overweight man gets out of the driver's side of the car and begins looking around the property. A woman then gets out of the passenger side of the car and opens the back door of the car to let several children out. The overweight man begins to get into a loud verbal argument with the woman that involves the use of foul language. Andy and Agnes England are in shock and offended by the language these people are using in their neighborhood. Andy and Agnes look at each other and ask, "Who are these people?" Agnes asks, "Maybe we should call the police?" Andy says, "No, they're probably here to do the maintenance of the property. It's hard to find good help these days." Agnes says, "Yes, perhaps you're right. The grass is a bit long." About 20 minutes later, 2 additional cars pull into the vacant neighboring house's driveway. The 2 drivers get out of their cars, and Andy England immediately recognizes them. Andy England's jaw drops, and he goes into a state of shock. Andy says to his wife, "That's Mike Brigante Sr. and Rocco DeFeo. They are both big-time mobsters. What are they doing here in this part of town?" Reality sets in for Andy and Agnes England, when a large moving truck pulls in front of the now formerly vacant house next door. Andy asks his wife, "These mobsters are our new neighbors?" Agnes says, "Oh my God." For the residents of Ocean Avenue, the Amityville Horror started on June 28, 1965, the day the DeFeo family moved into their dream home on Ocean Avenue. Ronald DeFeo Sr., also known as Big Ronnie, and his wife Louise DeFeo moved their family from a small apartment in Brooklyn to Amityville. Big Ronnie and Louise have 5 children: John, Allison, Mark, Dawn, and Ronald Jr. Ronald Jr. also goes by the names Ronnie Jr. and Butch.
In the summer of 1965, the house at 112 Ocean Avenue is sold to the DeFeos, a close-knit Italian Catholic family. It is a prosperous time for the city-bred DeFeos, a prosperity evidenced by their move from a small Brooklyn apartment to the 6-bedroom, 2.5-story Dutch colonial on Long Island's affluent South Shore. The DeFeos have 5 children: John Matthew, Mark, Allison, Dawn, and their eldest son, Ronald Jr., better known as Ronnie or Butch.
In anticipation of a prosperous future, Big Ronnie places a sign in front of his house which reads "High Hopes." Over the coming years, the DeFeo family would disrupt the tranquility of Ocean Avenue, causing the residents of Ocean Avenue to wish the DeFeo family would just simply leave and move back to where they came from.
Village of Amityville residents did not really like the DeFeos. The DeFeos were from Brooklyn. They didn't fit the South Shore atmosphere, the style. Mr. DeFeo was quite loud and boisterous, so they didn't fit that persona that the village residents wanted to see in their neighborhood.
As the residents of Ocean Avenue learned about the DeFeo family and discovered who they really were, the residents became alarmed. The father of Louise DeFeo is Mike Brigante Sr., who is a big-time mobster. Mike Brigante Sr. has ties to Carlo Gambino, who is a Sicilian mobster who controls the Gambino crime family. Big Ronnie's father is Rocco DeFeo, who is another big-time mobster. Rocco DeFeo's brother is Peter DeFeo, who is a soldier in the Genovese crime family. Peter DeFeo works closely with Vito Genovese, who is a boss of the Genovese crime family.
Both grandfathers were very heavy in the mafia. Both grandfathers were very heavy in the mafia. Both grandfathers were very heavy in the mafia. Both grandfathers were very heavy in the mafia.
Big Ronnie and his oldest son Butch work at Brigante Carl Buick, a car dealership co-owned by Louise's father, Mike Brigante Sr. Residents on Ocean Avenue wonder how Big Ronnie, a simple manager at the car dealership, could afford such an expensive house. The residents discover that the DeFeo house was paid for in cash by Mike Brigante Sr., using mob money. Mike Brigante Sr. loved his daughter, son-in-law, and grandchildren and would do anything for them. Money was no object for Mike Brigante Sr. when it came to his daughter's family. He would provide luxurious furnishings for the DeFeo house. He would also provide shoes, jewelry, and the latest gadgets. The car dealership where Big Ronnie and Butch worked was not just a simple dealership.
The way the dealership was a front for the mob was it consisted of money laundering, body disposal, evidence disposal, where they would melt weapons down in the body shop's melting pot. It was a front. It did the dirty business of organized crime.
Andy and Agnes England are horrified by the DeFeo family and what they are doing to their community and town, but they are helpless to do anything about it. The other residents of Ocean Avenue feel the same way but are worried about the DeFeo family's ties with the mafia. Big Ronnie and Butch would often carry handguns and not be afraid to pull the weapons on people they were involved in arguments with. The DeFeo family used foul language and they were constantly screaming and fighting with each other. Often the DeFeo family would have loud arguments inside and outside their home using vulgar language that offended their neighbors. The DeFeo family was showy and threw money around. The community resented them and wished they would move away. Big Ronnie was supplementing his income by using his boat docked right behind his home to run illegal drugs into Amityville. Big Ronnie would rendezvous with drug runners in boats waiting along the river and bring the drugs in and distribute the drugs through the car dealership. Big Ronnie in his boat speeding away so he can make his rendezvous to pick up his illegal drugs. Big Ronnie's second oldest son, Mark, would often brag to his school friends about his father's illegal drug running. The DeFeo family was tarnishing the community by bringing in bad elements involved in organized crime to the community. The Ocean Avenue residents saw the DeFeo family as a threat and viewed them being as out of control. Big Ronnie would often urinate on his property in plain sight for his neighbors to see to show his neighbors that this was his property, and he would do with it as he pleased. Agnes England would often catch Big Ronnie in this crude act and tell her husband that she can no longer live next door to this animal. When disputes erupted with their neighbors, Big Ronnie and Butch would often threaten their neighbors by telling them that they would bring in the mob to murder their neighbors' families. A rumor being told around town of Butch DeFeo's involvement in the drowning death of a man in the nearby river canal also deeply disturbs the community. The adverse relationship between the DeFeo family and their community was increasing daily and soon the relationship would hit critical mass. Detective Rattery of the Amityville Police Department arrests Butch for being in possession of a stolen outboard boat motor. After learning of his son's arrest, Big Ronnie goes down to the police station to remind the police of the DeFeo family's ties to organized crime. Big Ronnie storms into the police station and gets into a loud verbal confrontation with Detective Rattery. Big Ronnie asks, "Do you know who my father is? Do you know who my wife's father is?" Detective Rattery replies, "Yeah, I know who the DeFeos and Brigantes are." Big Ronnie warns, "Don't mess with the DeFeos and Brigantes, or you will regret it." Big Ronnie then grabs his son's arm and storms out of the police station with his son. Detective Rattery's 12-year-old daughter is a friend of Allison DeFeo. One day, both Allison and Detective Rattery's daughter are over the DeFeo house playing when Butch storms into the house. Butch, still seething with anger over his arrest by Detective Rattery, has just learned Detective Rattery has now arrested his best friend on drug charges. Butch sees Detective Rattery's daughter in the kitchen and starts screaming at her, "If your father keeps messing with me, I'll kill you and your cop father." The little girl, horrified, drops her doll on the floor, and runs out the back door crying. Butch then picks up the doll and throws it in the trash can, uttering "little brat." Allison runs up to her bedroom, vowing never to speak to her brother again. Detective Rattery's daughter ran home and told her father of the threat made by Butch. Word of Butch's threat to murder Detective Rattery and his 12-year-old daughter would spread and reach a powerful organization known as the Government Mafia. Butch DeFeo's developing interest in high-powered rifles begins to disturb the residents of Ocean Avenue. Butch purchased 2 rifles and began showing them off to his friends and expressed interest in obtaining silencers. Butch would even test-fire his rifles by shooting them from his bedroom window at objects outside the house. After Butch's girlfriend was fired from her job at a local bar, Butch went down to the bar and stood outside the bar firing his handgun into the air and threatening the owner of the bar. Butch would even brazenly walk up and down Ocean Avenue firing his rifle in the air. One night while at dinner with his girlfriend, Butch told his girlfriend that he was eager to use his connections in organized crime to order a hit on someone. Butch is rumored to have broken into a house in the neighborhood and stolen property to fund his drug habit. Butch is known around town as a drug addict, a thief, a heavy drinker, and an all-around troublemaker with a bad temper. One day, Big Ronnie is in the swimming pool, floating on his raft and enjoying the beautiful summer day. Butch approaches the pool and throws a cherry bomb into the pool. The explosion startles Big Ronnie, causing him to fall off his raft into the water. Big Ronnie gets out of the pool and gives chase. Butch jumps into his car parked at the end of the driveway, quickly backs his car out, and then tears away down Ocean Avenue. Big Ronnie jumps into his car but notices his wife's car behind him, blocking his exit. Big Ronnie, furious at his son, decides he will drive over his neighbor's property to get his car onto Ocean Avenue. Big Ronnie puts his car in reverse, clears his wife's car, and then floors the gas pedal. Big Ronnie drives over the England's neighboring property, spinning his wheels, leaving skid marks on the England's driveway, tearing up the England's lawn, and damaging the England's shrubbery. Big Ronnie then puts the car into drive and floors it again. Big Ronnie further damages the England's lawn and creates additional skid marks on the England's driveway that lead out to the street as he tears off the property and onto Ocean Avenue in pursuit of his son. A high-speed chase then proceeds throughout the streets of the community. Andy and Agnes England, sitting outside their home, witnessed the entire event and were forced to frantically retreat inside their home for their own safety. The dust, car exhaust fumes, and the odor of burnt rubber caused Andy and Agnes England to choke as they fled their front patio. Andy and Agnes England are in shock and become furious about the damage to their property and the fact that the DeFeos have again ruined their day. About 30 minutes later, Big Ronnie, failing to catch his son, returns home. As Andy England is outside inspecting the damage to his property, Big Ronnie again drives over the England's damaged property and parks his car back in its original spot. Big Ronnie gets out of his car completely ignoring Andy England, who is standing outside his home looking over at him trying to get his attention. Big Ronnie opens the front door of his house and prepares to enter, but he hears Andy England calling his name from behind. Andy England approaches Big Ronnie and angrily confronts him about the damage to his property and asks, "Who is going to pay for the damage?" Big Ronnie puts his finger right in Andy England's face and tells him, "Send the bill to my father. My father will ensure you get everything that's coming to you." Big Ronnie then slams the door in Andy England's face. Andy England walks away, shaking his head, in total disgust with the DeFeo family. Andy England quietly utters to himself, "Something has to be done about these psychos." Hours later, Andy England is in front of his house with a rake trying to repair the damage Big Ronnie caused earlier to his property when he begins to hear music. Butch is racing down Ocean Avenue in his blue 1970 Buick Electra 225, blaring his car radio and driving like a madman as he makes a fast turn into his driveway, screeching his car tires. Butch gets out of his car, looks over at Andy England holding a rake, and sees Andy England staring directly at him. Butch visually inspects all the damage to the England's property and begins to loudly laugh. Butch, knowing full well what really happened to the England's property, yells over to Andy England, "Hey England, you ought to take better care of your property. You're bringing down our property value." Butch walks away towards his home, continuing to loudly laugh. Butch opens the front door of his home and yells into the house, "Hey Fatso, I'm home." Butch slams the front door shut. Andy England, frozen in the same spot on his front lawn with the rake in his hand, then hears a loud argument ensue inside the DeFeo home. Andy England becomes so angry that he snaps the wooden handle of his rake in half and throws both parts across the lawn. Andy England abandons the repairs to his front lawn and goes inside his home to update his wife on the DeFeo situation. Butch knows his neighbors don't want his family living in the community, so he takes every opportunity he gets to annoy them. Butch blares his car stereo and screeches his tires at all times of each day as he departs and arrives home, a lot of the time with his loud rowdy friends who are drinking and always looking to party. Butch also knows his neighbors are aware of his family's ties to organized crime, so he makes his connections clear to the neighbors when he gets into arguments with them. After Butch catches the son of a well-known con-job family who lives nearby throwing stones into the DeFeo's swimming pool, Butch confronts the boy's mother. Butch warns the boy's mother, Brenda Con-job, that he knows powerful people, and tells her she shouldn't get on the DeFeo family's bad side. After hearing the threat by Butch, Brenda Con-job grunts loudly in total disgust and then grabs her son by the hand and leads the boy away. Brenda Con-job quickly returns home and warns her husband, John Con-job, about the threat Butch DeFeo just made. Brenda Con-job asks her husband, "What are we going to do about the DeFeo family and that psycho Butch?" Fearing the DeFeo family's ties to organized crime, the neighbors never call the police to report the threats or the disruptive behavior of the DeFeo family. The community feels they have been pushed to the brink by the DeFeo family and it's now time for them to act. The conspiracy begins. The residents of Ocean Avenue are fed up with the DeFeo family, but how can they fight back against a family with such powerful connections to the mafia? Andy England begins to secretly organize the residents of Ocean Avenue against the DeFeo family. The residents are fearful of the parents of Big Ronnie and Louise DeFeo. Both parents are big-time mobsters. It was common knowledge on Ocean Avenue that Louise DeFeo's father, Mike Brigante Sr., has ties to Carlo Gambino, a Sicilian mobster who controlled the Gambino crime family. Also known on Ocean Avenue is that Rocco DeFeo's brother is Peter DeFeo, who is a soldier in the Genovese crime family and works closely with Vito Genovese, boss of the Genovese crime family. The residents of Ocean Avenue are also aware of the DeFeo and Brigante families' involvement in bribes and payoffs of judges and certain high-positioned members of law enforcement. Andy England decides that he will try to reason with Big Ronnie. Andy England approaches Big Ronnie and states his and the community's concerns. Big Ronnie snaps, pulling his handgun and putting the weapon right in Andy England's face. Big Ronnie tells Andy England that the England family is nothing in this town anymore and the DeFeo family is now in control. Big Ronnie cocks the trigger of his weapon and asks Andy England, "Do you want to test me?" Andy England doesn't respond. Big Ronnie then tells Andy England that he and his mob associates will murder the entire England family if they interfere with the DeFeo family. Andy England, remaining silent, slowly steps backward with his hands in the air and then quickly walks back to his home. Andy England in his home picks up the phone and calls a powerful member of his family. Andy tells his family member, "Big Ronnie just threatened to kill our family." Andy continues by telling his family member, "I think he means it and we have to do something about the DeFeo family." The powerful family member tells Andy, "We can no longer tolerate the DeFeo family in Amityville. I know someone from the government who can help us." The residents of Ocean Avenue and other powerful people in the town of Amityville, including members of law enforcement, begin to meet secretly to discuss how to rid Amityville of the DeFeo family. Andy England has organized the people attending the secret meeting. Detective Rattery is also attending the secret meeting. Both Andy England and Detective Rattery are in complete agreement that action must be taken against the DeFeo family. The people attending this meeting will ultimately become known as the Ocean Avenue conspirators. The topic of the meeting quickly turns to how do we kill the DeFeos before they kill us? The concern is that if a hit is made on the DeFeo family and Mike Brigante Sr. and Rocco DeFeo discover the conspiracy, then the mafia will retaliate against the community by ordering hits against those involved. This would put the residents of Ocean Avenue families and others involved in the conspiracy at great risk. The question asked is how do we murder the DeFeos on Ocean Avenue without incurring the wrath of the mafia? Andy England tells the attendees of the meeting that his family has lived in this town for generations and the land the DeFeo house is built on once belonged to his family. Andy England says he can no longer stand by and watch the community and town be destroyed by scum like the DeFeo family. Andy England tells the attendees that we must wipe the DeFeo family out to protect our families, community, and town. Andy England stands and then tells the people in the room that there is a secret government organization that can help us. This organization is a group of people that the government covertly funds, trains, and equips to deal with people involved in organized crime. Andy England explains that if we bring in these people to deal with the DeFeo family, we must all be united and agree to never disclose or reveal information about who these people are or what they will do to the DeFeo family. After Andy England answers questions and addresses concerns from the Ocean Avenue conspirators, they all finally agree to keep their silence. Andy England then warns that if any of them were to betray these government people, they would have nowhere in the country to hide. The meeting is then adjourned. 1 week later, the Ocean Avenue conspirators meet again, and this time one more person is attending the meeting. The additional person is a member of the government mafia. The man introduces himself as Agent Simmons of the government mafia. Agent Simmons begins to discuss ways the government mafia can offer solutions to the DeFeo menace in their community. Agent Simmons offers a plan to murder 6 members of the DeFeo family on Ocean Avenue while they sleep and then set up the oldest son, Butch, to become the patsy and take the fall for the murders. Agent Simmons explains that the government has special classified military-directed energy weapons that can murder people through walls without creating physical evidence. This technology is known as through-wall heart attack weapons. It can stop a person's heart through walls. The targeted person goes to sleep and never wakes again. Agent Simmons further explains that after the 6 members of the DeFeo family are murdered, a strike team will enter the DeFeo residence and reposition their lifeless bodies on their beds and make it appear that Butch took his rifle and shot them all in the middle of the night. It will be a perfect hit against the DeFeo family. Butch will be incapacitated with special classified technology designed to render a person helpless for up to an hour. Butch will be unable to explain his actions during the murders, and with his reputation around town he will be pronounced guilty of the murders, even before his trial. No one will believe Butch. Butch will make a perfect patsy. Butch is known as the town psycho and is without doubt a sociopath. Agent Simmons then tells the attendees that we will wipe out the DeFeo family on Ocean Avenue for you, but you must do something for us. Additional steps will be necessary. We must draw the attention of the public away from the bizarre nature of the murders, and onto something completely different. Agent Simmons explains that we will use our connections in the real estate business to lure a crackpot family to the former DeFeo residence and trick them into believing the house is haunted. Classified sonic harassment technology will be used to trick this family into believing the former DeFeo residence is haunted. Agent Simmons goes on and guarantees that no harm will come to this second family, and they will abandon the house within 30 days. The haunted house hoax will draw the public's attention away from the bizarre nature of the murders. The government creates these haunted houses and other bizarre events in areas of the country to distract the public's attention away from social issues and onto things that simply can't be proven. The average American citizen is distracted and entertained by these events, but the crackpots become obsessed. This gives the crackpots something to latch onto and keeps their time occupied. It's like a dog chasing its tail. The crazies in society need meaningless things to occupy their time with, so we create these bizarre events for them. Some of these crazies in our society could be dangerous, so the hoaxes actually protect the American people. If the crazies weren't chasing after ghosts and UFOs, for example, they could be engaged in activities that place us all in danger. We are the social architects who manufacture tragedy and hoaxes in America. It's known as social engineering. We are America's secret police, working covertly behind the scenes to create a utopian society. We can help you, and you can help us. We are going to basically let the crazies create a smokescreen to cover up the DeFeo murders. With the distraction of a haunted house, no one would ever suspect the neighbors had any involvement in the DeFeo murders. We have done this many times before and we know what we are doing. You can trust the government mafia. The government mafia is very proud of what we have done and continue to do. The news media's attention to the murders and then the haunted house hoax will neutralize Mike Brigante Sr. and Rocco DeFeo. The death of Mike Brigante Sr. and Rocco DeFeo's daughter, son, and grandchildren will personally devastate both men. The government mafia wants to put a dagger right through the heart of both Mike Brigante Sr. and Rocco DeFeo. As payback for hostile actions against the government, Agent Simmons explains, the government mafia wants to take away what Mike Brigante Sr. and Rocco DeFeo care about the most, their family members, including their grandchildren. The town of Amityville will benefit from the elimination of the DeFeo family on Ocean Avenue and the subsequent neutralization of Mike Brigante Sr. and Rocco DeFeo. The town of Amityville will also benefit from the notoriety and tourism that is generated by the haunted house incident. After the second family abandons their home for what they believe is supernatural activity, a third family will then move in and deny there is anything wrong with the house. This third family will be a local family here in Amityville with full knowledge of the conspiracy. The third family will publicly state that the previous owners of the house are liars, and it was a money-making fraud by the second family. This will fuel the hoax and the controversy as the crackpots in society battle each other over who is telling the truth. The crackpots battling each other on national television makes for great theater for the average American citizen. The government will also benefit from the hoax and the ability to test classified lethal directed energy weapons and non-lethal sonic harassment technology against human guinea pigs. Agent Simmons tells the Ocean Avenue conspirators that after the third family moves in and denies the house is haunted, there will be a short period of news media attention and curiosity seekers. Agent Simmons guarantees that interest will peak and slowly diminish over a period of months. After that, the community can return to normalcy. Agent Simmons also guarantees the Ocean Avenue conspirators that they will never get caught because the technology is classified and no one other than secret elements of the government know of it. You have absolutely nothing to worry about. Agent Simmons tells the Ocean Avenue conspirators that he will personally oversee the elimination of the DeFeo family. We will take care of everything. Agent Simmons explains that the government mafia is made up of law enforcement, military personnel, and ordinary citizens. The government mafia has a score to settle with Butch DeFeo for threatening to murder Detective Rattery and his daughter. We know how to deal with punks like Butch DeFeo, Agent Simmons states. Agent Simmons then sternly warns the attendees of the meeting that if any of them betray the government mafia, they will forfeit their lives. You must take this to your graves and never disclose any of this information to the public. You will not discuss this operation with anyone else other than the people in this room. You will absolutely not tell your children. If you tell anyone else about this operation, you will be placing yourself and the person you tell in great jeopardy. Let me be clear about this: if you disclose this operation, it could be a fatal mistake for you and the person you tell. Never discuss any part of this operation over the phone or in places where you could be overheard. Play it safe and only discuss this operation when we meet as a group, or you are talking to me directly. The life you save could be your own. If the public should discover that the government is covertly using the military against the American people, it could spark a civil war in this country. The Ocean Avenue conspirators agree to never disclose the information, and a pact with the government mafia is entered into. This is equivalent to a pact with the devil. The Ocean Avenue conspirators believe that this is their only way to protect their community and town from the growing negative influence of the DeFeo family. The direct neighbors of the DeFeo family are told to not call the police if they see anything suspicious occurring around the DeFeo house and also to ignore any strange or odd behavior by the DeFeo family. Andy England then stands and exclaims, "That fat pig and his psycho son will no longer terrorize this community." The rest of the Ocean Avenue conspirators stand and begin to applaud. John and Brenda Conjob are standing in the front of the room near Agent Simmons and Andy England. Brenda Conjob, still seething with anger with Butch DeFeo for threatening her, suddenly yells out, "Kill them," followed immediately by her husband, John, yelling, "Wipe them all out." Agent Simmons looks over at John and Brenda Conjob and nods his head in approval. Agent Simmons likes what he sees in John and Brenda Conjob, and he thinks to himself, "I have plans for these two." Agent Simmons senses that the Ocean Avenue conspirators want blood, and he is prepared to give it to them. Andy England then adjourns the meeting. Andy England has offered Agent Simmons the use of his home to conduct electronic surveillance of the DeFeo family. Days later, a white van arrives at the England house and pulls into the garage. Agent Simmons and another agent get out of the van. Agent Simmons closes the garage door. Andy England greets both agents and informs them they can use any room of the house they require. Agent Simmons and his colleague begin to move container boxes from the back of the van into a room of the England house that will be used to conduct the surveillance of the neighboring DeFeo house. The England house directly neighbors the DeFeo residence, which makes complete surveillance of the entire DeFeo family easily achievable. The government mafia has classified surveillance technology that can electronically see and hear through walls of a house. All surveillance technology is operated from inside the England house, so no visual evidence of the surveillance is possible from outside the England house. To anyone just passing by the England house, nothing out of the ordinary will be noticed. The classified surveillance technology generates detailed images of people through walls. The classified surveillance technology is also sensitive enough to hear a person breathing through walls. Agent Simmons and his colleagues, from inside the England house, simply point a device at the DeFeo house and detailed images appear on a screen of the DeFeo family inside their neighboring home, and their conversations can also be heard. The DeFeo family will never know they are under complete electronic surveillance through the walls of their home. There is no privacy for the DeFeo family from this technology. Everything will be learned about the DeFeo family. What time they wake in the morning. All their conversations will be monitored. What time they leave for work. Who they associate with. What time they arrive home. What time they go to bed. All intimate details of the DeFeo family life will be learned. Agent Simmons and a team of professionals will study and analyze the surveillance intelligence and make preparations for the elimination of the DeFeo family. Agents will also move into a business suite near the car dealership where Big Ronnie and Butch work and place the car dealership under covered electronic surveillance. Both Mike Brigante Sr. and Rocco DeFeo's homes will also be placed under covered electronic surveillance. The DeFeo family has now been under surveillance for months, and Agent Simmons has learned everything about the DeFeo family. Agent Simmons decides it is now time to advance to the next phase of the operation against the DeFeo family. Agent Simmons and his colleagues will use classified sonic harassment technology against the DeFeo family. The government mafia has classified technology that can project audible sound through walls of a house and direct the audible sound towards one person in that house. An ultrasonic laser is a beam of sound that travels like a light laser. The ultrasonic laser can't be seen or heard. When two ultrasonic lasers are angled to combine at a point in the distance, a lower frequency is created at that point. This lower frequency can be audible sound. The government mafia has classified sound projection technology that uses ultrasonic lasers to pass audible sound through walls. The ultrasonic lasers act as carrier waves to transport the audible sound through walls. These ultrasonic lasers pass through walls without causing any damage to the house. This sound projection device can project audible sound at one person inside a neighboring house. No one other than the targeted person will hear the audible sound. The government mafia has incorporated their classified surveillance technology that can electronically see through walls into targeting scopes that can identify and target people through walls. A person in a house can be identified and targeted through the walls of his house by an agent of the government mafia from inside a neighboring house. This ability to target a person through walls and project audible sound at that person through walls gives the agents of the government mafia an extraordinary method to manipulate the targeted person. This is a demonstration of how Agent Simmons will use the classified sound projection technology to project the voice of God at Big Ronnie.
I am the God of Abraham, of Isaac, and Jacob. I am the God of Abraham, of Isaac, and Jacob. I am the God of Abraham, of Isaac, and Jacob. I am the God of Abraham, of Isaac, and Jacob.
Before the DeFeo family is murdered, Agent Simmons and his colleagues must create an appearance of serious mental illness in the DeFeo household. Agent Simmons and his colleagues will use the classified sound projection technology to trick members of the DeFeo family into believing they are experiencing extraordinary events in their lives. When the targeted DeFeo family members describe these extraordinary events to family and friends outside the DeFeo home, it will give the appearance that the DeFeo family is crazy. This is a common tactic used against targeted people by the government mafia: make the targeted people appear crazy before eliminating them. Fewer people ask questions or suspect foul play when tragic events occur that involve seriously mentally ill people. The DeFeo family on Ocean Avenue must be made to look like crackpots. Agent Simmons and his colleagues will use the DeFeo family's fears, desires, and religious beliefs as a weapon against them. Agent Simmons and his colleagues begin the phase of the operation to make the DeFeo family appear to be crackpots. While Big Ronnie is lying in bed alone, Agent Simmons uses the classified sound projection technology to project an audible message at Big Ronnie. The voice is projected through the walls of both houses at Big Ronnie from inside the neighboring England house. Only Big Ronnie hears the voice projected at him. Big Ronnie looks around his bedroom, but he discovers he is alone. The voice introduces himself to Big Ronnie as the voice of God. Big Ronnie is told by the voice of God that he must repent so he can be cleansed of his past sins and become a righteous man. After hearing the voice, Big Ronnie gets out of bed, falls to his knees, and then begins to pray. Big Ronnie believes he has been chosen by God. Big Ronnie is totally convinced that he is now in direct communication with God. Big Ronnie believes he could be the next Moses from the Bible. Big Ronnie now believes he is a prophet chosen by God to deliver God's message and guide the people. Big Ronnie believes he may have been chosen by God to receive a new version of the Ten Commandments. Big Ronnie eagerly awaits further communication with God. Big Ronnie begins his path to righteousness by immediately ending his illegal activities and turning to religion. Agent Simmons, having successfully tricked Big Ronnie into believing that God is speaking directly to him, now begins to play with him. Big Ronnie is told by the voice of God that he should use physical violence to discipline his family. Big Ronnie begins to physically abuse his family by slapping them, throwing them around, and punching them. Big Ronnie is told by the voice of God not to let his wife drive her car on certain days. Big Ronnie tells his wife that God has forbidden her from driving her car on these days. Big Ronnie believes he is having premonitions about future events and can predict the future. Big Ronnie tells his family and friends that he is in direct communication with God, and he can predict the future. Big Ronnie's family and friends begin to worry about his sanity. Butch DeFeo is also targeted by Agent Simmons. Agent Simmons projects sounds of voices whispering at Butch telling him to murder his family. Agent Simmons projects strange noises of banging sounds throughout the house at Butch. Butch also hears screaming, ghosts, and people walking around at night. Butch gets out of bed and searches the house but finds his family soundly asleep and no one else in the house.
Well, when I first moved in, you start hearing noises of different things at night. Noise, like you thought somebody might have been walking around, pipes banging. Oh, they were always saying somebody's in the house, ghost, or once in a while you'd hear screaming, but there wasn't nobody screaming.
Agent Simmons projects audible sounds of voices at Butch telling him that his family is conspiring to murder him.
Thought that he heard members of his family in another room conspiring to kill him.
Louise DeFeo is also targeted by Agent Simmons. Louise DeFeo is in the basement doing laundry when Agent Simmons projects an audible message at her, telling her that the DeFeo family will soon die.
You are gonna die!
Louise DeFeo begins to tell friends that a terrible tragedy will soon happen to her family.
The housekeeper to the DeFeo family stated to me on several occasions during the trial that Mrs. DeFeo told her that there was going to be a terrible tragedy occurring to her family.
The DeFeo family on Ocean Avenue begins to unravel. Agent Simmons projects an audible message at Big Ronnie commanding him to build religious shrines on his property so he can worship his god. The next day Big Ronnie buys the materials for the religious shrines and orders Butch to build one shrine in front of the house and one shrine in back of the house. Butch reluctantly constructs the shrines and places religious statues around the house but tells his father, "Fatso, you have serious mental issues."
In a show of devotion, Mr. DeFeo surrounds the house with religious statuary.
Big Ronnie creates a shrine in his bedroom so he can pray to his god each night before going to bed. Big Ronnie begins carrying a Bible wherever he may go. Big Ronnie is seen outside his home several times a day by his neighbors on his knees praying at the shrines. Big Ronnie tells his family and friends that the reason he built the religious shrines is because God has commanded it. The neighbors quietly laugh to themselves as they notice the increasingly odd behavior of Big Ronnie. The neighbors look forward to the day when the community is free of the DeFeo menace. Agent Simmons laughs hysterically each time as he looks out the window of the England house and sees Big Ronnie on his knees praying before the shrines awaiting further communication with God. Agent Simmons decides to test Big Ronnie's devotion to his god by sending him on a religious crusade. One morning while praying at his shrine, Big Ronnie hears the voice of God commanding him to journey to St. Joseph's Shrine in Canada and bring back a priest to recite the prayers of exorcism in the DeFeo home.
I am the God of Abraham, of Isaac, and Jacob.
The voice of God tells Big Ronnie that his oldest son, Butch, is possessed by the devil, and the only way to save his son and drive the evil forces out of his home is with the exorcism ritual. Big Ronnie tells his family and friends that he has been directly commanded by God to begin a holy crusade. Big Ronnie and Louise frantically pack their bags and embark on their pilgrimage to St. Joseph's Shrine in Canada. At the St. Joseph's Shrine, Big Ronnie explains to a priest named Father Marco that he is in direct communication with God, and he needs Father Marco to return with him to Amityville to battle evil forces within his home. Big Ronnie also warns Father Marco that his oldest son may be possessed by the devil. Big Ronnie is so convincing that he manages to persuade Father Marco to accompany him and his wife back to Amityville and assist them in battling the evil forces in their home.
They felt the devil was in the house. That's what brought all that religion into the house.
Mr. DeFeo went to St. Joseph's Shrine 6 months before he was murdered to bring back a priest who would say the prayers of exorcism in his home.
Big Ronnie, Louise, and Father Marco arrive at the DeFeo residence in Amityville. Agent Simmons, inside the neighboring England house, is closely monitoring the situation. Father Marco enters the DeFeo home and makes an inspection. A few hours later, Father Marco, holding a large shiny silver metal crucifix, begins saying the prayers of exorcism. Both Big Ronnie and Louise are present as Father Marco begins the ritual. As soon as Father Marco begins saying the prayers, Agent Simmons fires sonic lasers into objects on tables to knock the objects to the floor, and he fires sonic lasers into open doors to make the doors slowly move. The government mafia has classified sonic weapons that fire a powerful beam of sound through walls of a house without causing physical damage. The beam of sound can't be seen or heard, but as it passes through an object, a small amount of force is exerted on the object. The beam of sound can be ultrasonic, which is above the human hearing range, or infrasonic, which is below the human hearing range. The beam of sound is also referred to as a sonic laser. More specifically, the sonic laser can be an ultrasonic laser or infrasonic laser. The object inside the DeFeo home is targeted with a classified through-wall targeting scope. Any object in the DeFeo home can be targeted with this technology. The sonic laser is fired from inside the neighboring house. A sonic laser passing through a ceramic bowl creates enough force to knock it off the table. A sonic laser passing through a lamp creates enough force to knock it off the table. A sonic laser passing through an open door creates enough force to make the door move. Father Marco, Big Ronnie, and Louise are in complete shock as they witness objects in the house moving on their own. Father Marco warns Big Ronnie and Louise that the evil forces inhabiting their home are too powerful for him alone to exorcise, and they should ask the Catholic Church directly for assistance. Moments later, Butch arrives home. Agent Simmons sees Butch arrive and decides to target Father Marco's stomach area with an infrasonic weapon. Big Ronnie greets his son at the door and brings him into the living room to meet Father Marco. At that moment, Agent Simmons fires an infrasonic laser into Father Marco's stomach area, causing Father Marco to become violently sick to his stomach. Father Marco is the only one affected. As Butch enters the living room and walks towards Father Marco leans forward in excruciating pain as Butch gets closer. As beads of sweat roll down Father Marco's brow, Father Marco looks up and sees what he believes is the Antichrist approaching as Butch continues to walk towards him. Father Marco, covering his mouth with one hand and firmly gripping his large silver crucifix in the other, fights the urge to vomit as Butch gets closer and closer. Father Marco suddenly backs away from Butch and quickly makes his way towards the front door. As Big Ronnie and Louise follow Father Marco to the front door, Butch asks, "Did I do something wrong?" At the front door, Father Marco frantically tells Big Ronnie and Louise he can do no more for them. Father Marco exits the DeFeo home, slamming the front door closed on his way out. Father Marco leans over and vomits into the shrubbery at the side of the DeFeo home. Father Marco runs down the DeFeo driveway towards Ocean Avenue and accidentally drops his large silver crucifix. Father Marco doesn't stop to recover the crucifix but just keeps running. Father Marco runs as fast as he can down Ocean Avenue on foot, trying to get as far away from the DeFeo residence as possible. After calming his wife down, Big Ronnie runs out of his home and attempts to chase after Father Marco, but quickly finds that being overweight has impeded his ability to catch the slender, agile priest. Big Ronnie returns home alone. Big Ronnie right away notices the silver crucifix glimmering from the sunlight in the driveway. Big Ronnie picks up the crucifix and then enters his home. Big Ronnie finds Butch still in the living room. Big Ronnie grabs Butch by the collar of his shirt with his free hand and thrusts him against the wall. Big Ronnie, gripping the long end of the crucifix and waving the crucifix up around just an inch or two from Butch's eyeballs in a threatening manner, tells his son, "You're the devil." Butch replies to his father, "Yeah, I know, and you're nuts." Big Ronnie throws the crucifix down at his son's feet and walks away. Butch picks up the crucifix and throws it across the room and yells to his father, "Screw you, fatso." Big Ronnie later discovers that Father Marco, after fleeing his home, sought refuge in a nearby church. Big Ronnie never again hears from Father Marco. Agent Simmons projects the voice of God at Big Ronnie, "Thou hast learned and witnessed the true identity of your son. Butch is the Antichrist." Big Ronnie now begins to tell his family and friends that he has the devil on his back, referring to Butch. Big Ronnie now sees his son in a whole new light.
By the early days of November 1974, tensions in the household reach a breaking point.
Just days before the murders, he and his father had an argument where his father referred to him as a devil. It came close to blows. Ronnie stormed out.
When people asked Mr. DeFeo why he had all these special holy statues around his home, he said, "It's because I have a devil on my back."
Agent Simmons continues to create turmoil within the DeFeo household. Physical violence escalates out of control between the DeFeo family members. One night while the DeFeo family is eating dinner, Butch drops his napkin on the floor. Butch pushes his chair back from the table and leans over to pick up the napkin. Agent Simmons in the neighboring England house has been carefully observing the DeFeo family at dinner. Agent Simmons projects an audible message at Big Ronnie that only he hears: "Butch is the devil. God commands you to beat the devil out of him." Seconds later, Big Ronnie gets up from his chair and grabs Butch and throws him against the wall and proceeds to punch and slap him in the face repeatedly.
He was quite abusive. He would go off the deep end for the slightest infraction. One time, the family was eating dinner at the dinner table and Butch dropped his napkin. Well, normally you bend down to pick up your napkin. Well, Butch did so. He raised back up and his father asked him, "Why'd you leave the table?" Butch was surprised by this and said, "I didn't. I just went to go pick up my napkin." Like it was nothing, Big Ronnie got up out of his chair, grabbed his son, threw him against the wall, and started beating on him until he was a bloody pulp. Afterwards, he let his son go, sat back down at the table, and ate dinner like nothing had happened. That was life in the DeFeo house.
Another night, the DeFeo children are screaming in and out of control. Louise is in the basement doing laundry. Louise begins to climb the basement stairs with a basket of laundry. Agent Simmons projects an audible message at Big Ronnie that only he hears: "Your family is out of control. Discipline your wife. God commands you to punch your wife in the face." Seconds later, Big Ronnie gets up from his chair and walks over to the basement door and punches his wife in the face, sending her tumbling down the stairs.
I am the God of Abraham, of Isaac, and Jacob.
Big Ronnie then tells the rest of his family, "Now we will have some peace around here." Days later, Big Ronnie and Butch are in the basement playing a game of pool and arguing about missing money at the car dealership. Butch insists he is not a thief, and he knows nothing about the missing money. Agent Simmons projects an audible message at Big Ronnie: "Don't trust the devil. Butch stole the money. God commands you to teach the devil a lesson about stealing. Break your pool stick over the devil's head." While Butch is preparing to take his shot in the game, Big Ronnie walks up behind him. Big Ronnie exclaims, "Thou shalt not steal," and then takes his pool stick and breaks it over his son's head.
My father broke a pool stick over my head.
Butch yells out in excruciating pain, "You crazy fat SOB." Butch throws his pool stick on the table and says, "Game over, fatso." While rubbing the top of his head to relieve the pain, Butch walks away. The next day, Agent Simmons projects another audible message at Big Ronnie while Big Ronnie is sitting in the living room reading his Bible. Dawn and her boyfriend are both sinners. God commands you to discipline Dawn.
I am the God of Abraham, of Isaac, and Jacob.
Big Ronnie puts his Bible down, gets up from his chair, and then proceeds to the kitchen to confront Dawn. Big Ronnie gets into a heated argument with Dawn about her relationship with her boyfriend that quickly turns violent. Big Ronnie screams at Dawn that she must turn away from sin and follow Jesus and live a holy and righteous life. Butch is upstairs in his bedroom and still seething over his father breaking a pool stick over his head. Butch hears the commotion involving his father coming from downstairs. Butch grabs his rifle and runs downstairs to confront his father. Butch enters the kitchen, points the rifle at his father, and then pulls the trigger but the rifle fails to fire.
Picked up a shotgun. I knew the gun was loaded, you know. And I said, that is it. I want to kill him. Hey! Gun didn't go off.
Agent Simmons and his colleagues, observing the DeFeo family with the classified surveillance technology, sigh in disbelief as the rifle fails to fire. Agent Simmons now wishes to drive Big Ronnie and his wife further apart. Agent Simmons projects an audible message at Big Ronnie, "Your wife is unfaithful. God commands you to watch her closely." Big Ronnie becomes suspicious that his wife is having an affair. Big Ronnie has a special phone installed in the dining room of the DeFeo home. The phone number is not written on the phone because Big Ronnie wants to be the only one to be able to call the phone. Big Ronnie demands his wife be home while he is at work to answer the phone. Big Ronnie calls his hotline in the dining room every hour while he is at the car dealership to keep tabs on his wife. The government mafia's operation against the DeFeo family has been mostly successful so far. The DeFeo family has been turned against each other and their outside family and friends believe they are insane. Butch decides he has had enough of his crazy father. Butch packs his bags and tells his father he is leaving home for good and vows never to return to Ocean Avenue.
Desperate to escape his tumultuous home life, Ronnie moves out of the house.
Butch tells his father on the way out the door, "I'm outta here, fatso." Agent Simmons needs Butch living at the DeFeo residence on Ocean Avenue so Butch can become the patsy when the time is right to wipe out the DeFeo family. A week after Butch leaves home, Agent Simmons projects the voice of God at Big Ronnie. "God commands you to bring your son back home at any cost." The voice of God explains to Big Ronnie that the world will soon end and only his family will survive the approaching apocalypse, only if they all stay together in their home on Ocean Avenue. The voice of God further explains that he has selected the DeFeo family to be spared from the wrath of God only if the DeFeos are all true believers. The voice of God informs Big Ronnie that the devil can be driven from Butch but Big Ronnie must act quickly to save his son's soul from eternal damnation. The voice of God tells Big Ronnie exactly where Butch is now residing. Big Ronnie grabs his Bible, runs out the front door, jumps in his car, starts the car, floors the gas pedal, and then tears out of his driveway down Ocean Avenue heading towards the address God has provided. Big Ronnie recites verses from the Bible as he races through traffic, running stop signs and red lights, on what he believes is a holy mission from God. Big Ronnie storms into Butch's new residence and begins screaming, "This is God's will. God has commanded." Big Ronnie grabs Butch and uses physical force to drag him outside to his car. Big Ronnie physically forces Butch into his car and they both return to Ocean Avenue. Big Ronnie tells Butch that God has commanded that he, Butch, live here on Ocean Avenue. Big Ronnie then threatens to physically harm his son if he ever leaves home again. Big Ronnie informs Butch of the coming apocalypse and the only way to survive is for this family to stay together in this house on Ocean Avenue. Big Ronnie tells Butch that he has spoken directly with God and God told him he will soon destroy this wicked world. Big Ronnie believes he initially made a mistake at first interpreting God's messages and believing he was the next Moses who would receive a new version of the Ten Commandments.
He actually built a shrine on the front lawn to St. Joseph because he believed that St. Joseph and God spoke to him.
He made statements that he actually could foresee certain things happening in the world. He told me at one time that we were going to be hit with a tidal wave.
He called his brother-in-law to let him know that there was a tsunami coming, but of course the tsunami didn't come.
He had told me one time he had a vision, and he actually, in his words, were that he was communicating directly with God.
Big Ronnie now believes he has been chosen by God to be the next Noah from the Bible, and he must prepare himself and his family for the soon approaching apocalypse. Butch tells his father, "Fatso, you are completely insane." Big Ronnie tells his family and friends that God has told him the world will end soon and only the true believers will be spared from the wrath of God. Big Ronnie's family and friends believe that Big Ronnie is losing his mind and may need to be institutionalized. Agent Simmons decides to create more turmoil between Big Ronnie and Butch. As Butch is making a money drop for the car dealership, Agent Simmons arranges a robbery of Butch in his car while Butch is waiting at a red light. Butch returns to the car dealership with a suspicious robbery story that angers Big Ronnie. Agent Simmons then decides to loosen the brake lines on Butch's car one night while the DeFeo family is soundly asleep. Butch nearly avoids a fatal car accident because of brake failure, but he begins to suspect his father is trying to murder him. With the classified technology, the government mafia has a huge technological advantage over their domestic enemies, but they are much fewer in number, so they use the technique of turning their enemies against each other, so their enemies destroy each other. Basically, Agent Simmons wants the DeFeo family to kill each other to save him the trouble of doing it. Dawn DeFeo's boyfriend has just moved to Florida. Dawn DeFeo wants to leave home and move to Florida to be with her boyfriend, but her father forbids it. Big Ronnie warns Dawn of the soon approaching apocalypse. Big Ronnie tells Dawn that God has told him that the only way for his family to survive the coming apocalypse is to stay together in their home on Ocean Avenue. Dawn believes that her father is completely crazy and wants to get as far away from him as possible. Dawn tells her boyfriend on the phone that she wants to kill her wacko family and move to Florida to be with him. This common adolescent threat made by most teenagers will be the trigger for Agent Simmons to order the murder of the DeFeo family. Agent Simmons believes that the verbal threat made by Dawn to murder her family and heard by her boyfriend outside the DeFeo home is what he and his colleagues have been waiting for. This threat by Dawn to murder her family will add an aura of mystery to anyone investigating whether Dawn played a role in the murders. Agent Simmons, having failed to get the DeFeo family to kill each other, decides now is the time for the government mafia to murder the DeFeo family. The word is given to the strike team to assemble on the night of November 12, 1974. Agent Simmons proudly states, November 12, 1974, will forever be known as the night the DeFeos died. All equipment and personnel must be in place and ready. The staging ground for the assault against the DeFeo family will be the neighboring England house. The plan will be to use a classified military-directed energy weapon to fire a beam of electricity into the chest area of each of the 6 members of the DeFeo family while they are asleep in their beds, which will instantly put them into cardiac arrest. The government mafia's code name for this type of weapon is a through-wall heart attack gun. A different type of weapon will be used against Butch. Butch will be immobilized by a directed energy weapon used to incapacitate a person through walls for a short period of time. The weapon will fire a burst of energy into Butch's head that will severely disorient him for up to an hour. The entire operation has been carefully planned for months. 6 DeFeo family members will be murdered through the walls of their home and Butch will be incapacitated. Agent Simmons will be the leader of a 3-member strike team that will exit the England house and then enter the DeFeo house. 2 members of the strike team will rearrange the lifeless bodies of the 6 members of the DeFeo family on their beds. Their bodies will be repositioned, so they are on their stomachs with their arms extended above their heads. The DeFeo's bodies are being positioned on their stomachs face down because of what Agent Simmons has learned while performing research at the Amityville Historical Society. Agent Simmons has learned that a local Indian legend told that tribal enemies were buried face down.
The position of the 6 bodies bears an eerie similarity to the local Indian legend, which holds that tribal enemies were buried face down. An Indian curse, some say, may have driven Ronald DeFeo Jr. to murder. Tribal enemies, or those said to be possessed by evil spirits, were left to die on this land and then buried face down, cursed to stare for all eternity into the dark abode their spirit was sent to join.
Agent Simmons believes the Indian legend will add an aura of mystery to the next phase of the operation when the paranormal aspect is introduced. Agent Simmons will be the strike team's designated shooter on the assault against the DeFeo family. Butch's rifle will be taken from his room by Agent Simmons and placed in a specially built enclosure designed to deaden the blast from firing the rifle. The enclosure is a big and bulky case that surrounds the rifle, but it allows the rifle to be fired. The enclosure deadens the blast from the rifle without leaving evidence of a silencer. After the bodies of the DeFeo family are repositioned on their beds, Agent Simmons will shoot each of the 6 DeFeo family members. Big Ronnie and Louise will each be shot twice in the back, and Mark and John will each be shot once in the back. Allison and Dawn will each be shot in the head. The reason the young female members of the family will be shot in the head is because it will repulse and anger the jury at Butch's trial for the murder of his family. Agent Simmons is a professional assassin who will have no trouble shooting the DeFeos, including the DeFeo children. In fact, Agent Simmons wants the personal honor of pumping 2 bullets into Big Ronnie's back. Butch will be left alive to become the patsy and take the fall for the murders. The directed energy weapons leave no evidence of their use. No physical marks from the directed energy weapons will be left on the DeFeo's bodies. No damage will occur to the England or DeFeo house. The directed energy weapons are the ultimate weapons because their use can't be proven, so the only evidence will point to Butch as the murderer. From the surveillance of the DeFeo family, it is known that Big Ronnie keeps a large sum of money in a cash box hidden in a secret compartment in the floor of the closet in the master bedroom. Agent Simmons will take the money from the cash box and leave the empty cash box to indicate Butch had a motive to murder his family. Agent Simmons will also take 2 cardboard boxes that once housed Butch's rifles. These cardboard boxes may be put back at a later time for the police to discover as evidence. One of the cardboard boxes will indicate Butch owned a rifle that was the same caliber used to murder his family. The plan is foolproof, and Butch will not be able to explain his actions the night of the murders. Butch will fully recover in about an hour and will not understand what happened. By the time Butch recovers, the strike team will be long gone, and Butch will be left holding the bag. Agent Simmons has determined that Butch's actions will be unpredictable after he discovers the carnage, so many contingency plans have been developed. Butch is known as the town psycho, and no one will believe Butch is innocent. Butch will take the fall for the murders, and the town of Amityville will be free of the DeFeo menace on Ocean Avenue forever. The DeFeo murders. It's the evening of November 12, 1974. 2 agents who will be part of the 3-member strike team have arrived in a van. The van pulls into the garage in the back of the England house. The garage door is closed. Agent Simmons assists his colleagues in removing container boxes from the back of the van and moving them into the house. The agents set up the classified military weapon that will be used to put 6 members of the DeFeo family into cardiac arrest while they sleep. A classified military directed energy weapon that will fire a burst of energy into Butch DeFeo's head to incapacitate him is also assembled. The DeFeo family will be attacked right through the walls of their home. As the DeFeo family finishes their dinner and readies themselves for bed, it is unknown to them that for 6 of them, this night will be their last. It is now 11 p.m. and Big Ronnie, Louise, Allison, Dawn, Mark, and John are all soundly asleep in their beds. Butch is in the basement watching TV and doing illegal drugs.
November 13th, 1974. While his family sleeps, 23-year-old Ronald DeFeo Jr. sits in a darkened room watching television.
The television program he was watching was an army movie called Castle Keep.
Agent Simmons on the first floor in the England house activates the through-wall targeting scope and targets Big Ronnie's chest area and notifies his colleagues that he is ready to fire. Agent Simmons' colleagues acknowledge and state they are in place and ready. Agent Simmons notifies his colleagues that he is commencing the operation. Agent Simmons presses a button on the weapon and a beam of electricity is fired into Big Ronnie's chest area. Big Ronnie lets out a gasp for air and then immediately goes into cardiac arrest. The beam of electricity is completely silent and invisible. The beam of electricity creates no physical evidence as it passes through the walls of both houses and Big Ronnie's chest area. No one else but Big Ronnie is affected. Louise, still asleep and unaffected, is then targeted. Agent Simmons fires and Louise lets out a gasp for air and she goes into cardiac arrest. Agent Simmons then targets Allison, Mark, John, and Dawn one by one and they are each put into cardiac arrest. Within a minute all 6 members of the DeFeo family lie in their beds in full cardiac arrest and dying. Agent Simmons gives the order to an agent on the second floor of the England house to take out Butch and the family dog. The agent activates a directed energy weapon and then targets Butch's head. The agent fires the weapon. Butch is watching TV and then all of a sudden the room starts spinning and he can't get out of his chair. Butch believes he is having a stroke as he goes in and out of consciousness. The agent then targets the DeFeo family dog and fires the weapon at it. The dog immediately collapses on the floor and is immobilized. The agent notifies Agent Simmons that Butch and the dog are immobilized. Agent Simmons joins the 2 other members of the strike team. The 3 strike team members are inside the England house, near the door that faces the DeFeo house, waiting to advance on the DeFeo house. The strike team is wearing all black clothing, hooded jackets, and gloves. Agent Simmons informs his colleagues that the strike team is moving to the DeFeo house. Agent Simmons opens the side door and the strike team exits the England house and quickly makes their way to the front door of the DeFeo house. In just seconds the strike team is at the front door of the DeFeo house. Agent Simmons picks the lock on the front door and the 3 members of the strike team enter the DeFeo residence. The front door is then closed and locked. The strike team moves into the DeFeo house. Agent Simmons makes his way upstairs to the 3rd floor and enters Butch's bedroom. Agent Simmons obtains Butch's rifle and a box of bullets from Butch's bedroom. Agent Simmons loads the rifle with bullets and then places the rifle in a special sound-deadening enclosure. The 2 other strike team members enter the master bedroom and find the lifeless bodies of Big Ronnie and Louise. The strike team members pull the blankets off Big Ronnie and Louise. The strike team members then reposition Big Ronnie and Louise's bodies on their bed, so they are on their stomachs with their arms extended above their heads. Because of Big Ronnie's excessive weight, the strike team members encounter great difficulty repositioning his body. Agent Simmons enters the master bedroom with Butch's rifle and fires 2 shots into Big Ronnie's back. Agent Simmons is moving across the room as he fires the 2 shots into Big Ronnie's back, thereby creating 2 different bullet trajectories of the shots fired into Big Ronnie. Agent Simmons then pauses in a position where he has a clear shot at Louise and then fires 2 shots into her back. The blasts from the rifle are deadened by the enclosure around the rifle, enough to prevent the shots from being heard outside the DeFeo house. Butch hears muffled blasts, but he is unable to get out of his chair. Since both Big Ronnie and Louise died minutes earlier, they had no reflex when they were each shot. Agent Simmons grabs Big Ronnie by his hair and lifts his head and then asks him, "Whose family are you going to kill now, you fat piece of crap?" Agent Simmons then releases Big Ronnie's hair and his head falls back into his pillow. The strike team then exits the master bedroom and enters Allison's bedroom across the hallway. A strike team member then pulls Allison's blanket away and repositions her lifeless body on her bed so she is lying on her stomach with her arms extended above her head, in the same position as her parents. Agent Simmons then points the rifle at Allison's head and fires one shot. The strike team then exits Allison's bedroom and makes their way to Mark and John's bedroom. Agent Simmons pauses briefly in the hallway to reload Butch's rifle while the other two members of the strike team enter Mark and John's bedroom. Mark and John's blankets are pulled off their lifeless bodies and then their bodies are repositioned on their beds on their stomachs with their arms extended above their heads. Agent Simmons enters the bedroom and points the rifle at Mark's back and fires one shot, and then seconds later points the rifle at John's back and fires one shot. Before leaving the room, Agent Simmons takes note of Mark's leg twitching after being shot in the back, indicating Mark's spine has been severed by the bullet. The strike team then exits Mark and John's bedroom and makes their way to Dawn's bedroom on the 3rd floor. The strike team climbs the stairs to the 3rd floor and then enters Dawn's bedroom. Dawn's blanket is pulled back and then her lifeless body is repositioned on her bed so she is on her stomach with her arms extended above her head. Agent Simmons points the rifle at Dawn's head and fires one shot. The strike team then exits Dawn's bedroom and enters Butch's bedroom, across the hallway. Agent Simmons opens Butch's closet and removes the 2 cardboard boxes that once housed both of Butch's rifles and places each box in a plastic bag. The cardboard boxes will be removed from the house and possibly returned later. One of the cardboard boxes once housed the murder weapon, so it will likely be placed back into Butch's possession for the police to discover as evidence. The strike team returns to the master bedroom on the 2nd floor and Agent Simmons enters Big Ronnie's closet. Agent Simmons locates and removes a metal cash box hidden in the closet floor. Agent Simmons empties the cash box of a large sum of money and places the money in a plastic bag. Agent Simmons is taking the money to indicate that Butch had a motive to commit the murders. Agent Simmons wipes the cash box clean of all fingerprints and places the empty cash box back into its hidden compartment in the closet floor. The strike team then exits the master bedroom and makes their way down to the 1st floor. On the 1st floor, Agent Simmons removes Butch's rifle from the sound-deadening enclosure. Agent Simmons takes Dawn's black hooded jacket from the coat rack and puts it on. Agent Simmons raises the hood on Dawn's jacket to conceal his face and proceeds downstairs to the basement with Butch's rifle and remaining bullets. In the basement, Agent Simmons finds Butch immobilized in a chair in front of a TV with a war movie called Castle Keep playing. Butch is fading in and out of consciousness and unable to get out of his chair. Butch sees a hooded person wearing all black clothing with black hands place a rifle on his lap. Butch passes out again. After placing the rifle on Butch's lap, Agent Simmons empties the remaining bullets from the box onto Butch. The bullets fall onto Butch's lap, chair, and floor. Agent Simmons throws the empty bullet box at Butch, and then turns around and heads to the basement stairs. As Agent Simmons is walking up the basement stairs, he says, "Good luck explaining this, Butch." Agent Simmons joins the strike team assembled at the front door. Agent Simmons removes Dawn's jacket and returns it to the coat rack. Agent Simmons uses his personal radio to request the all-clear to exit from his colleague in the England house. The all-clear is given so the strike team exits the DeFeo residence, and the door is locked. The strike team makes their way back to the England house. The strike team enters the England house. Agent Simmons closes the door and exclaims, "Mission accomplished." Agent Simmons and the 2 other strike team members change back into civilian clothing. To give Agent Simmons and his colleagues enough time to remove most of the classified equipment from the England house, Butch will be attacked repeatedly with a directed energy weapon to ensure he is incapacitated until about 3 a.m. The DeFeo family's dog is also attacked in the same manner to keep it quiet. Agent Simmons is unsure what Butch will do when he discovers the carnage, so he wants to remove as much of the classified equipment from the England house as possible. The agents pack up the classified military-directed energy weapons and other non-essential equipment. The agents place the container boxes into the back of the van. The England's garage door is then opened and the van, with the 2 members of the strike team and classified equipment inside, pulls out and quietly drives away into the night. It's now 3 a.m. and Butch begins to recover. The DeFeo family dog has recovered and is barking ferociously in the kitchen. Agent Simmons in the England house targets Butch's head and activates the classified sound projection device. Agent Simmons plays an audio recording on a tape deck. The audio recording is that of 8 rifle shots. Butch, slumped in his chair, begins to regain consciousness and hears 8 loud rifle shots as clear as day. Agent Simmons projected the audio of the 8 shots at Butch to make Butch's story implausible should Butch decide to call the police after discovering his family's bodies. The medical examiner will determine that the DeFeo family died at approximately 11 p.m. that night, and it will damage the credibility of Butch, who claimed that he heard the shots at 3 a.m. in the morning. This is known as psychological warfare. After Butch hears the rifle shots, he looks down and discovers his rifle on his lap, along with bullets on his lap, chair, and floor. Butch grabs his rifle and attempts to get to his feet, but he finds it difficult to stand. As Butch attempts to stand, bullets and an empty box fall to the ground. Butch examines his rifle, bullets, and empty bullet box. Butch is confused as he tries to understand why his rifle and bullets are not in his bedroom on the 3rd floor. After several minutes, Butch manages to get to his feet, but he is dizzy and begins to bump into walls and furniture as he makes his way to the basement stairs. Butch, still carrying his rifle, climbs the basement stairs and finds the dog in the kitchen barking. Butch yells at the dog, telling it to shut up. Butch climbs the 1st floor stairs and makes his way to the master bedroom on the 2nd floor. Butch enters the master bedroom and finds his parents both lying on their stomachs with bullet holes in their backs, both apparently dead. Butch looks on the floor and finds bullet casings that appear to be the caliber of his rifle. Butch drops his rifle and says, "Holy crap." Butch then runs to his siblings' bedrooms and finds them all on their beds in the same position as their parents and all dead from apparent bullet wounds. Butch inspects the bullet casings on the floors of his siblings' bedrooms and discovers they are also all the same caliber as his rifle. Butch, crying, doesn't understand what happened. Butch searches the rest of the house but finds no one else in the house, and all the doors and windows are locked. No sign of a forced entry or any evidence to indicate another person was in the house. Butch asks himself, did I do this? Am I going crazy? Did I black out and then murder my entire family? Butch tells himself, I was watching TV at 11 p.m., blacked out, and then awoke at 3 a.m. and heard rifle shots. I looked down and found my rifle on my lap and an empty bullet box with bullets scattered all over me. I then discover my entire family has been murdered. Butch screams, what the hell is going on here? But there is no one else alive in the house to answer Butch. Butch collapses on the floor and curls up into a fetal position. Butch needs time to think.
I was scared. My whole family is dead. I didn't kill them. How am I going to explain this?
Reality sets in for Butch, and he quickly contemplates his options. Butch decides he cannot do anything more for his family, so he must act in self-preservation and take steps to protect himself. Butch soon realizes that all the evidence points to him as the murderer. Butch is a felon who is on probation and a drug addict. Butch quickly determines that he can't call the police because the police will immediately suspect he murdered his family. Butch also fears what both his grandfathers will do to him when they discover all the evidence points to him. Butch telling his grandfathers that he slept through the murder of his entire family would simply not be a plausible explanation. Butch fears that one or both of his grandfathers, who are both big-time mobsters, will order a hit on him when they discover he is responsible for the murder of their family members. Butch determines that his only option is to first remove all the evidence that links him to the murders and then go to work and return home at night and pretend to have just discovered the carnage. Butch's plan is to return home at night, enter the house, wait several minutes, and then quickly run out of the house. Butch will race in his car down Ocean Avenue to a local bar where his friends gather after work. Butch will then storm into the bar, approach his friends, and plead for help. When the police finally arrive at the DeFeo residence, Butch will blame the murder of his family on a mafia hit and provide the police with the name of a mobster who he suspects was responsible. Butch, having worked out the major details of his plan, gets up off the floor and begins to clean the crime scene by collecting the spent bullet casings on the floor of each bedroom and placing them in a pillowcase. Butch then goes to his bedroom and collects the unused rifle bullets and the rifle case and places them into the pillowcase. Butch looks for the cardboard box that his rifle was sold to him in, but he is unable to find it, so he assumes it was thrown in the trash. Butch goes down to the basement and collects all the bullets on the chair and floor and places the bullets back into the original box. Butch places the box of bullets into his pillowcase and then makes his way upstairs. Butch's plan is to dispose of the evidence that links him to the crime on the way to work and then go to work and act normal. Butch, knowing that crime scene photographs will be taken, decides to show the female members of his family respect by covering their bodies with blankets. Butch, being a clean freak, decides to clean the blood and brain matter from the headboard of Dawn's bed. Butch takes a shower and trims his beard to make himself look more presentable. Butch picks up his rifle he dropped on his parents' bedroom floor and the pillowcase he left in the hallway and makes his way downstairs. Butch quickly makes himself breakfast and leaves the dirty pan in the sink to make it appear as if it's a normal morning. Butch, carrying his rifle and pillowcase, exits his house, locks the door, gets in his car, and then drives away. Agent Simmons in the neighboring England house has been observing Butch with the surveillance technology and is not surprised Butch didn't call the police. Agent Simmons notifies his colleagues that Butch has left his house and has taken the rifle and other evidence with him. Andy and Agnes England have been holed up in their bedroom since 10 p.m. and simply ignored any commotion in the house. Agent Simmons knocks on the bedroom door of Andy and Agnes. Andy opens the door and Agent Simmons tells Andy that the town is now free of the DeFeo family. Agent Simmons tells Andy that when he and his wife are ready, I will brief you in the living room. Andy tells Agent Simmons he and his wife will be down shortly. Andy closes the door. Andy consoles his wife, who is upset. Andy tells his wife, we couldn't let those mobsters threaten our family and take over our town. We did what was necessary to protect our family, community, and town. Several minutes later, Andy and Agnes enter the living room and are both updated by Agent Simmons on the current situation. Andy and Agnes are told that when the police are eventually called, they should act surprised and offer any assistance to the police. Agent Simmons tells Andy and Agnes to tell the police that the DeFeo family was a troubled family and Butch DeFeo is mentally ill. Butch stops at a dock along the river down the street from his house and gets out of his car. Butch grabs his rifle from his car and quickly walks to the end of the dock. Butch throws the rifle into the river as far as he can. Butch then walks back to his car, gets in, and drives away. Unknown to Butch, an agent of the government mafia has been following him. The agent's car is parked a distance away where Butch doesn't notice him. The agent takes note of where Butch disposed of the evidence. Butch finds a storm drain on a street on the way to work and tosses the pillowcase that contains the remaining evidence into the storm drain. The agent following Butch then again notes the intersection where Butch disposed of the additional evidence. Butch drives away and heads to work. Butch arrives at his workplace, Brigante Carl Buick car dealership. Agents of the government mafia located in a neighboring business office have the car dealership where Butch works under complete electronic surveillance. One of the agents monitoring the dealership calls Agent Simmons to inform him that Butch has arrived at the car dealership. Minutes later, Agent Simmons exits the England house carrying the 2 cardboard boxes that once housed Butch's rifles. Agent Simmons makes his way back to the DeFeo house. Agent Simmons picks the lock and enters the DeFeo residence. Agent Simmons makes his way upstairs to Butch's bedroom. Agent Simmons removes the plastic bag from each rifle's cardboard box and places both boxes in the corner of Butch's bedroom. The cardboard boxes were placed in an area of Butch's bedroom that will allow the police to easily discover the evidence. Agent Simmons returns to the first floor and then exits the DeFeo house, locking the door behind him. At work, Butch tries to act normal. Butch attempts to call home several times using a phone in the main office where the secretary can see and hear him. Butch hangs up the phone each time and asks aloud, "Why doesn't anyone answer?" Butch smiles at the secretary and goes back to work after each attempt. Butch decides to leave work early, at around 2 p.m. Butch drives over to his girlfriend's home and spends a few hours with her to give the appearance that nothing is wrong. Butch uses his girlfriend's phone to make calls to his home in attempts to contact his family, but no one answers the phone. Butch expresses concern to his girlfriend that his phone calls made to his home are unanswered. Butch leaves his girlfriend's home at around 5:30 p.m. and drives home. Butch arrives home at about 6 p.m. Agent Simmons has removed all classified equipment from the England house, except for the surveillance equipment being operated from inside a bedroom on the second floor. The rest of the England house is as it was before Agent Simmons moved in. Agent Simmons will be closely monitoring events as they unfold inside the neighboring DeFeo residence. After entering his home, Butch waits several minutes inside by the door. Butch says to himself, "Okay, I got to do this right or I'll spend the rest of my life in prison." Seconds later, Butch runs out of his home and jumps into his car. Butch tears out of his driveway and heads down Ocean Avenue to a local bar called Henry's Bar. Butch tears into the bar's parking lot and jumps out of his car. Butch storms into the bar and approaches his friends. Butch tells his friends that his mother and father are both dead, and he needs their help. Several of Butch's friends jump into Butch's car and quickly drive to Butch's home. Butch tells his friends he cannot go back into his home, so he remains outside while his friends enter the DeFeo residence. Butch's friends are horrified after they discover the carnage. The police are called and the DeFeo residence is turned into a crime scene. Detective Rattery arrives at the scene. Butch is told by Detective Rattery that for his own safety, he will be placed into protective custody.
Ronnie himself reports the murders. Citing his family's alleged mafia connections, Ronnie is taken into protective custody.
Detective Rattery gives Butch his word that he will not rest until he finds whoever murdered Butch's family. "I will bring whoever did this to justice," Detective Rattery exclaims. The news of the DeFeo murders breaks.
First, this bulletin from the WOR newsroom. 6 members of one family have been found shot to death in their night clothes in their expensive home in Amityville, Long Island. The only available information at this moment, according to the Amityville Village Police, is that the victims have been identified as members of the DeFeo family. They were found by a 23-year-old son, Ronald DeFeo, who is believed to be the only surviving member of the family. 6 members of the family found shot to death in their home in Amityville, Long Island. We will have further details on the 11 o'clock news.
Crowds begin to assemble outside the DeFeo residence. News reporters descend on Amityville and begin to case the neighborhood looking for information on the DeFeo family. The Amityville locals who knew Butch tell the reporters similar stories.
The Amityville locals had already made their minds up about who had slaughtered the family.
I walked around the neighborhood and I said, "Can you tell me anything more about what happened?" And almost to the person, every kid said, "Ronnie did it, Ronnie did it."
I was in my car. I believe the reporter was Joe Martin. Came on and said that the killings had happened, and they didn't say that Ronnie was dead with them. And I said to my wife that it was Ronnie.
Ronnie was, I'll put it this way, a wild teenager.
He had a reputation for using drugs, for violence, for fighting with his father.
He was a punk. All he did was drink, gamble, and fight. If you knew him, and you knew the situation, I guess, or you ever spent any time around him, it was not something that he was incapable of doing. And when everybody else is dead and he's not, you know.
Children on their bicycles across the street from the DeFeo residence chant to the news reporters, "Ronnie did it. Ronnie did it. Ronnie did it." A news reporter walks across the street to talk to the children, and the children tell the reporter that the DeFeo family was nuts and they were always arguing and fighting with each other. Butch's reputation around town as a drug addict, a thief, a heavy drinker, and all-around troublemaker with a bad temper comes back to haunt him as rumors and gossip about him spread around town. Agent Simmons was correct in his prediction that the town of Amityville would pronounce Butch guilty even before his trial. The Ocean Avenue conspirators watch the events unfold and they quietly celebrate amongst themselves the end of the DeFeo family's reign in Amityville. The Ocean Avenue conspirators tell each other, "It's over." The Ocean Avenue conspirators liken the murder of Big Ronnie to the murder of Mighty Caesar. The Ocean Avenue conspirators keep their blood-stained daggers well hidden in their closets, cautious never to expose the conspiracy and let the public know the truth about what really happened on Ocean Avenue. Detective Rattery, keeping his vow to Butch to find the person who murdered Butch's family, begins to examine the crime scene. Detective Rattery wastes no time and begins his investigation in Butch's bedroom. Detective Rattery makes the discovery of the 2 rifle cardboard boxes that Agent Simmons placed back in Butch's bedroom. Detective Rattery points the rifle boxes out to the other investigators in the house and says, "Gee, look at what we have here. It looks like Butch is a rifle fanatic." It will soon be discovered that one of the boxes once housed the same caliber weapon that was used to commit the murders.
But in searching the DeFeo house, the cops uncovered some evidence that linked the DeFeo murders to another family, their own. In Butch DeFeo's bedroom, the cops discovered the box to a .35 caliber Marlin rifle, the same type of weapon used to kill the DeFeo family. With evidence linking him to a possible murder weapon, the cops turned their attention away from the mob and toward Butch DeFeo.
An hour later, Detective Rattery calls the other investigators into the master bedroom and shows them a metal cash box he discovered hidden in the floor of the closet. Detective Rattery opens the cash box and discovers it is empty. Detective Rattery says, "Well, it looks like whoever murdered the DeFeos knew about this cash box and the murders appear to be motivated by money." Detective Rattery puts the cash box in a plastic bag and then hands it to an investigator and says, "Better check it for fingerprints." Even Butch's friends are convinced Butch murdered his family. A friend of Butch informs the police that weeks earlier Butch's rifle was accidentally discharged in his home, and the bullet was still lodged into his floor. Detective Rattery rushes over to recover the bullet from Butch's friend's floor. A ballistics report will soon indicate that the recovered bullet was fired from the same rifle used to murder all 6 members of Butch's family. Butch is interrogated at the police station. Butch has no friends in law enforcement. Butch is beaten and tortured by 2 detectives during an intense interrogation. Butch insists that a notorious mafia hitman named Louis Fellini murdered his family.
I'm going to tell you straight out, I didn't care who they blamed it was as long as it wasn't me. I mean, that's the bottom line. I did not care. I didn't care then, I don't care now. I didn't care who they blamed.
Butch doesn't break under the brutal interrogation by the 2 detectives, so Detective Rattery is called in to take over. Agent Simmons has secretly provided Detective Rattery with crime scene details and the exact locations of where Butch disposed of the murder weapon and other evidence. Detective Rattery needs a confession from Butch to arrest him, but Butch continues to maintain his innocence. Butch cannot provide a rational explanation of what happened the night his family was murdered, so he makes up stories to divert suspicion away from himself. Detective Rattery asks the other 2 detectives to leave the room so he can conduct a one-on-one interrogation with Butch. "I know how to handle punks like Butch DeFeo," Detective Rattery quietly tells his colleagues as he escorts them out of the room. Now with only Detective Rattery and Butch in the room, Detective Rattery sits directly across the table from Butch. Agent Simmons is concealed from sight in the cargo area of a government mafia's mobile unit parked outside in the parking lot directly next to the building. The mobile unit is a small truck equipped with classified through-wall surveillance technology and a directed energy weapon. Agent Simmons has been closely monitoring Butch's interrogation with surveillance technology. Agent Simmons observes that Detective Rattery and Butch are alone, so he targets Butch's head with a through-wall targeting scope. The through-wall targeting scope is attached to a directed energy weapon that will render Butch unconscious for about 30 minutes. Agent Simmons presses a button on the directed energy weapon and a beam of energy is fired into Butch's head. Detective Rattery is staring down Butch when all of a sudden Butch's head falls hard on the table. Detective Rattery, knowing just what happened, says to himself, "Nice shot, Agent Simmons." While Butch is unconscious, Detective Rattery begins to write Butch's confession on a page of a tablet. The confession is the information that Agent Simmons provided about crime scene details and locations where Butch disposed of evidence. Detective Rattery decides to include the information about Butch's brother Mark's leg twitching after being shot in the back. Only the true murderer would have such knowledge, Detective Rattery says to himself. After about 30 minutes, Butch begins to recover. Butch lifts his head and sees Detective Rattery sitting directly across from him with a pen in his hand and a notepad with a whole page filled with writing. Detective Rattery shakes his head in total disgust and says to Butch, "You must be insane to have murdered your entire family." Detective Rattery quickly stands, grabs his notebook, and then exits the room. Detective Rattery tells his two colleagues standing outside, "He just confessed to murdering his entire family and I've got the whole confession written down." "Arrest that crazy psycho SOB," Detective Rattery exclaims and then walks away. Butch is arrested. Detective Rattery provides the teams investigating the DeFeo murders with the exact locations of the evidence. The police recover Butch's rifle from the Amityville River and later recover the pillowcase, with the remaining evidence, from the storm drain. Butch is hauled away to prison. The next day's newspaper tells the whole story.
But then on November 15th, just 2 days after the DeFeo family murders, the police announced they had officially solved the case. Their prime suspect, Butch DeFeo, had confessed after hours of intense interrogation. And he provided investigators with a treasure trove of physical evidence with which to build their case against him.
Agent Simmons and Detective Rattery meet a few days later at Henry's bar to have a beer to celebrate the end of the DeFeo reign in Amityville. Detective Rattery tells Agent Simmons that no punk like Butch DeFeo is going to threaten to murder me and my daughter and get away with it. Agent Simmons tells Detective Rattery that Butch DeFeo threatened to murder you and your daughter, so we murdered his family and set him up to take the fall for the murders. What could be more fitting? Agent Simmons asks. Now we will ensure the right people are in place to see that Butch is convicted and gets life in prison. At that moment, Detective Rattery looks over at the television above the bar and sees the DeFeo funeral being reported on the late news. Detective Rattery quietly utters, "Good riddance." Agent Simmons looks over at the television and says, "I'll second that." Agent Simmons and Detective Rattery finish their beer, shake hands, and then leave the bar. As the town of Amityville watches the DeFeo funeral coverage on television, most struggle to understand why Butch murdered his family. Unknown to Amityville was the fact that it was physically impossible for Butch to have committed the murders. The police initially stated that Butch drugged his family at dinner and murdered them while unconscious, but the autopsies indicate no members of the DeFeo family were drugged. Butch made the perfect patsy because not even his own family believes he is innocent. Mike Brigante Sr. and Rocco DeFeo both believe that Butch is mentally ill and capable of committing murder, but they ask, how did he do it? In court at pre-trial, Butch denies he confessed to the murder of his family, and he tells the judge he was beaten up by the police and tortured. Detective Rattery testifies under oath in court that Butch confessed to him that he murdered his family, and provided crime scene details and the locations of where he disposed of the evidence. Butch's attorney questions Detective Rattery and discovers no one else heard Butch confess to the murders and no recording was made or signed confession obtained. It was simply Detective Rattery's word against Butch's. The judge asks how Detective Rattery could have documented so much information about the murders if Butch didn't provide it. The judge indicates only the person who shot Mark DeFeo could have known his leg was twitching. The medical examiner indicated the twitching of Mark's leg was the result of a severed spine and only the murderer could know such a detail.
The bullet severed his spinal cord, and one of the descriptions that Ronald DeFeo allegedly gave to the police was that after he fired the weapon, he saw his leg twitch. And that would have been because the spinal cord had been severed, and that would cause an involuntary reflex of his foot twitching.
The judge rules that he believes Butch is lying and Detective Rattery is far more credible than Butch. The judge rules to allow Butch's confession into evidence. In a private moment between Butch and his grandfather, Mike Brigante Sr. tells Butch to just tell the truth, but Butch then tells his grandfather that if he tells the truth he will get life in prison. Butch insists to his attorney that he is innocent, but his attorney tells Butch that all the evidence indicates that he is guilty. The attorney tells Butch that no one will believe he slept through the murder of his entire family. Butch, being completely frustrated with the legal system, threatens to punch his attorney in the face. The attorney tells Butch straight out that if he pleads not guilty, he will be found guilty by the jury and spend the rest of his life behind bars. Butch, having considered all his options, reluctantly decides he has no choice but to follow his attorney's advice and admit to killing his family but use the insanity defense. The attorney guarantees Butch that he will only get a few years in a mental institution, and he will be a free man afterward.
The courtroom is like a stage. Insanity is a defense to get around things, whether you're insane or not. My attorney used insanity as a defense. He told me you had to go in the courtroom and act crazy. Make these people think you're crazy. He said, cops, Ronnie, you'll be out in 3 years. He said the crime itself looks like a crazy man had to do it. Somebody out of their mind had to kill the whole family. He said, this is what you got to do, and that's what I did. Changing stories was part of the insanity. You cannot go in the courtroom and stay on one track. If you stay on one track, you're not insane. You're very intelligent and know what you're doing. That was part of the insanity.
Butch officially pleads not guilty by reason of insanity to the court. During his trial, Butch puts forth his best effort to convince the jury that he was insane at the time he murdered his family. On the stand, Butch tells the jury that his family was conspiring against him, so he killed his family in self-defense. In front of the jury, Butch even threatens to murder the prosecutor, Gerard Sullivan. The strategy fails and the jury finds Butch guilty on all 6 counts of second-degree murder.
At DeFeo's trial 1 year later, defense attorney William Weber tries to prove that his client was legally insane at the time he committed the murders, and therefore not responsible for his actions. Ultimately, the jury finds him sane and guilty on all 6 counts of second-degree murder.
He said so many things that, after a while you begin to wonder what's real and what's not real. It was easy to write him off because he was such a liar and manipulator. He told more, I can't even remember, but he must have given about 6 or 7 different versions of what happened.
The judge imposes the maximum of 6 consecutive sentences of 25 years to life. The judge also recommends that Butch never be granted parole. The judge states, I am of the belief Butch is a real danger to society and that he may kill again, and the law provides for certain sentences to ensure the community's safety. Butch vows to the judge that the verdict will be overturned during appeal. Detective Rattery, sitting with the courtroom audience, has a distinct look of pleasure on his face as Butch is handcuffed and taken away. Now with the DeFeo house on Ocean Avenue vacant and Butch is behind bars for what will likely be the rest of his life, the Ocean Avenue conspirators decide they must go forward with the second phase of the conspiracy. With all the news media coverage of the DeFeo murders, people are asking questions about the bizarre nature of the murders.
Yet even as Ronald DeFeo Jr. serves 6 consecutive 25-year-to-life prison terms, several troubling mysteries about the murders remain.
How did Butch carry out the murders? Why were all the DeFeo bodies found in the same position on their stomachs with their arms extended above their heads? Why did they all die in their sleep when the first shot should have awoken them? Why no sign of a struggle? The DeFeo family was not drugged, so why didn't they get out of bed? Why didn't the neighbors hear the shots? Butch made a perfect patsy because not even Butch's grandparents believed he was innocent. The grandparents were asking similar questions that the public was asking. The grandparents believed Butch was mentally ill, but they would often ask how could one man go room to room in the middle of the night and commit the mass murder of his entire family with a rifle without awakening any of them. The grandparents knew Dawn was a big and strong girl, so they would often ask, why didn't she fight for her life? The Ocean Avenue conspirators are shocked by the amount of media attention and public interest in the DeFeo murders, and they fear the public could discover the truth and the conspirators would be tried as war criminals. End of Episode 1, The Murders. Please watch Episode 2, The Diversion. Author's note, a special thanks to the now deceased cop, who once lived in my community. Without the cop providing the information on the classified technology, this presentation would not have been possible. The cop's family is powerful and influential in my town, and the cop's family ties to the town go back many generations. An important town landmark is named in honor of the cop's family. The cop was also rumored to even have ties to the CIA. The cop's family once owned the property on which my house was built. The street the cop and I lived on is the name of a body of water. The cop died in 2013. Please visit hightechharassment.com.